So as promised, today we're talking about Gremlins 2 from 1990 after last week talking about the original. This was once again directed by Joe Dante, but the story was written by Charlie Haas, of course based upon the characters created by Chris Columbus. Phoebe Cates, Dick Miller, Zach Galligan, Howie Mandel, Frank Welker all return, as well as some great new members of the cast like Robert Picardo and one of my favourite actors of all time, John Glover, as Daniel Clamp. I nearly said Donald Trump, because it's obvious. As I said last time, I remember this one a lot more. Because they knew that Gizmo was the heart, they spent a lot more time and energy. Rick Baker's studio was now in charge, and we know how good they are of doing all the creatures. So we had a lot more diversity in the Gremlins. It wasn't just the same mold being reused. I didn't mention it last time, but I understand the logic behind that because it saves on budget. You have one mold for one Gremlin type, done. Mass produce, sorted. But here they could give them more mottling of the skin, they could give them spikes on some of them. Obviously we had George and Lenny and Daffy as some of the real hero ones, who we also saw in Mogwai form, who had a lot more expression, and like I say, Gizmo himself was a lot more expressive. We even had moments of full body, which, as time's gone on, they do look rather ropey, but I appreciate it. Now, one of the things I really loved about the first one that I didn't talk about because there's a great moment in this that talks about it, is the rules. Because we all know them, I'm sure. Don't let them get wet. Don't feed them after midnight. And don't expose them to bright light. One of the reasons in the first one that rule existed, that last one I mentioned, but it's normally the first one when they're given, is because they knew the puppets in bright daylight probably wouldn't stand up to scrutiny that well. They were quite clever with that. A lot of good films hide their monsters to make it more impactful and so you don't see the seams, if you will. But here they were like, no, we have full confidence. We can do full body motion. We can have the Bat Gremlin go out into the city and you can see this animatronic, this puppetry, in daylight whilst covered in cement. But you can see all this action going on. And I love the fact that they did that. This was Joe Dante's preferred one of the two, and like I say, I agree with him. I think it's a lot more fun, it's a lot more cartoony, and it still has darkness. There are some really terrifying moments. The bit in the lift, or for American audiences, the elevator, where they're grabbing Phoebe Cates' legs and saying, make a wish, like they're going to pull her apart like a wishbone. That's terrifying. And they grab her by the hair. It's very assaulty. That's the nicest way I can put it on YouTube, I think, or the best way I can put it. It's very uncomfortable to watch when you think about it from that lens. And yeah, there are moments where there is real threat. There are people in danger, but it moves away from those very quickly. It goes past them and goes, okay, now have something really funny to look at. So it still pushes the envelope a little. It still tries to give us something terrifying. But for the most part, it's a fun romp with, like I say, a vast array of gremlins compared to the first one. We have the spider gremlin, which weirdly, my arachnophobia doesn't get triggered because it's not fully a spider. It's a spidery body, but then it's got the gremlin thing, and you think that'd be more terrifying, but it's not. But I did like the character of Mohawk. I keep wanting to call him Spike because the Gremlinized version has a very spiky Mohawk motif kind of thing. It's similar to Stripe in the first one, but obviously instead of a fur thing, make it more like a gremlin would be, so it's more angular, more sharp. It's not cute and fuzzy. But I always want to call him Spike because of that, so if I do that throughout the video, you know why, but I'll try and say Mohawk. But he was such a great leader character, but again, it subverted the previous. He wasn't the end boss, if you will. The end boss was arguably the brain gremlin, and I think that's one of my favourite additions in this film. The fact we have a gremlin sort of saying, well, here are our motivations. This is what we're after. We want the civilization, but we also want to have a lot of fun. We know there's a lot of work to be done, but we're just going to have fun while we're here, and can you blame them? They're in New York, the city that never sleeps. Or is that a different one? I don't know, I'm not American. But it is a fun addition. All of the different variations. I like the use of the electricity gremlin to fry them at the end. I love all these things. I love the Ramboization of Gizmo as well. The fact that he's now not just passive. He's not a sideline character, if you will, for the end. He's actually fighting back this time again because they knew that he was going to be the core of the film. And there's so much in here that every single time I watch it, I chuckle. It's not one of those that when you've watched it 5 times, you're like, yeah, okay, that bit, whatever. It still gets a laugh out of me. And like I said, that's because I have an attachment to it. I can't remember what system I played it on, but I did have the Gremlins 2 game. And when you're watching it and you see things like that tomato that, you know, is more durable, there is a tomato weapon. It suddenly flickered to life in my brain. I was like, yeah, there's a tomato weapon based on that. And all these kind of things. And like the enemies are like electricity gremlins and things like that, as well as normal ones. And you do have Rambo Gizmo with the bow and arrow with matches and stuff like that. I think the two are intrinsically linked in my brain, but I really did love both of these. They are such a core part of me growing up, part of why I like fun, silly romps as well as deep, meaningful stuff. I do like to try and have a balance of things, and there is a place for things like this. And around this time of year, when the world's kind of a bit closed down, you just want to have a cosy, fun night in and a laugh. You can't go wrong with, you know, both of these films. They're very fun, and like I say, I much prefer the sequel, but I understand that it wouldn't exist without the first one, and that does have its merits. So I hope you've enjoyed these couple of weeks of me talking about Gremlins and Gremlins 2. Next year, which is very soon from this going live, there's a few things I've got to clear off my slate. There's a few bigger projects that I definitely want to get covered, but I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing and have fun. There will be, I think, some Marvel stuff coming out soon as well, because I do need to talk about them. I've enjoyed them enough. But yeah, hope you join me for that. I hope you've had a great festive period, whether you celebrate or not. And I hope 2022 allows us to do something closer to normal. I don't think we're ever going to get back to normal, but if we can get pretty close, I'll be happy. So thank you very much for watching, and as always, take care.